Hello everyone and welcome to part 20 of the React series. Today's topic is useReducer hook, one of the valuable additions in React which make it easy to work with function components. In today's video, I will demonstrate the dark mode toggle functionality with the help of useReducer so you can understand how it works. It is a simple example but you will know the idea behind it. Also hit subscribe button if you are new so you won't miss any part of this React tutorial series. Let's get started. useReducer hook is similar to useState in terms of storing and updating component, but it is a more advanced technique for more complex React application. Let's look at the syntax of useReducer hook. First value, return the state which hold the current value, and second value in the array is the dispatch function. To update the state, we dispatch an action object with a type property. useReducer accepts two arguments, reducer function and initial state. Reducer function return a new state based on dispatching actions that describe how state should change, and initial argument simply hold default value and update accordingly. Here I have a component named dark theme toggle and I return button and paragraph in JSX. I already created videos on how to install React locally, create function component, JSX, and some mistakes that most React developers make in the beginning. Take a look at these videos, and if you have any queries, leave that in the comment box. Let's start and import useReducer hook at the top of this component. In the curly braces, useReducer from React library and declare useReducer function in the function body. We will declare useReducer in the same manner as we used to declare useState hook. So with constant and the structuring pattern. Here useReducer. It returns current state value, which can be string, number or object. You can use state keywords or define any of your preferred name. It is up to you, like you can use task or user similar to useState. When you want to change the current state and reflect the update on the screen, we use the dispatch function. Dispatch is commonly described as sending a request from one place to another, and in React, dispatch sends an action from the component to the reducer function. Reducer accept reducer function. Here, most of you are familiar with the reduce function in vanilla JavaScript. It is the same in React but with a few differences. Reduce method is a high order function in vanilla JavaScript that accepts an array of values and reduces them to a single value. In React, reducer function take dispatching action and current state as arguments and reduces them to a new state. I will define reducer function in a second. Now let's define second argument. Initial state object is dark mode. Contain a boolean value that is set to false by default. Now we will define reducer function. You can use reducer function in a separate name function or in a separate file. The choice is yours, just make sure to point it at the reducer hook. I will define reducer function as a separate name function for now. So let's use const reducer function. And here it is spelling mistake, so it is reducer. When we define reducer outside of the component, we ensure that it is not redefined, which means that it won't define over and over again with the same name every time the component renders. Once again, you can name reducer as you want, like reducer dark mode or something, and make sure to point it to the useReducer. In useReducer, reducer function takes current state and action as an argument, and in the function we often use switch statement to check the condition. So here I will use switch as well and give it argument, means check the condition. Type property of action object. So here action type. In the case if type is dark mode active. Reducer returns a new state object with its dark mode initial property set to the opposite value in the current state. I will come to the action and type in a second. Here in return statement, I will use spread syntax 3 dot to create a new object with all the properties of the state object. Then we will override the value is dark mode with not operator, which toggle its value from false to true and true to false. To access or render the value of any property, we use state and property name is dark mode. And if in the case it is not true, we will return the default value, and default will return state as it is. To update the theme, we need to dispatch an action in the function component. I will describe dispatch function. First, let's declare handler function with const handle mode click. And when you want to update the data or UI, we pass the dispatch function to this event handler. Dispatch function is kind of the same as set state when it comes to updating the state, but approach is different. Instead of changing state directly, you will dispatch an action to reducer function. Dispatch function only accept an action. Action describe what change should be made to the state. Action can hold any primitive value like a string or number, but most of the time we describe it as an object. Action object typically contain type property and optionally other fields that may have additional information. Let's give it an action name which we describe in the reducer function, and we describe dark mode active. So let's copy it and paste it to here. Then on the button we will pass this event on click event. So here on click with the handle mode click. So it will dispatch dark mode active action to the reducer. When we press the button, React will execute reducer every time a dispatch function trigger a new action. To render a button text for the dark mode based on a boolean value, let's apply condition with a ternary operator. So instead of this dark mode here, I will specify curly braces, and here we have is dark mode object. So for reading the value of that property, we can use state is dark mode, give it a ternary operator. If the value is true, the text will be light mode, and the value is false, text is going to dark mode. Next, we will use useEffects in a functional component body to check the condition and apply the class to a document's body. So here first import useEffect hook beside useReducer and specify it into the body and pass callback function. In React, useEffect is used to execute side effect in a component. First, select the body with const using document body, then set the class name of body element, class name, based on state is dark mode, give it a ternary operator. If state is true, set the class name to dark, otherwise set class name to light. Now pass dependency array here in the square bracket, state is dark mode. So this will make sure that this update is applied every time value state is dark mode change. In this code, useEffect hook will update the class name of body element based on the value state is dark mode. Now in app.css file, save it I will define dark and light classes at the bottom. So it will apply to document's body element when button is clicked. Select dark class and give it background color black and color is going to white. Now select light class, give it background white and text color is going to black. Save every changes and go to browser, press button and here it change dark mode, and if you press again it toggle to light mode. So what happens here when you click button? Use reducer invoke reducer function and dispatch an action of type dark mode toggle. The reducer function change the value is dark mode and re-render the component. That's it for today's guys. Tell me about how you are managing your state in the comment box. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Instagram. I will see you in the next one.